Welcome to the dawn of the second half-century at Penn State Brandywine. So far, we have moved into 6 major buildings. We've navigated 1 name change, and we have thrived under the leadership of 4 chancellors. We've gone from a campus offering only the first 2 years of most Penn State programs to a campus where students can earn a bachelor's degree in at least a dozen fields. For the first 40 years, we were Penn State Delaware County campus. I'm standing outside of the beautiful Student Union building, which ushered in the start of our 51st year. And it's right next door to our first residence halls, which also opened in 2017 and provide lodging for 250 students. The buildings certainly mark our timeline, but there is so much more to our history. The campus has left a trail of legacies, let's call them signatures, that have continued to impact thousands of lives. We'll touch briefly on the stories that define each decade, but perhaps the richest campus lore is nestled within those humble beginnings in Chester.
John Viro said he had never visited Delaware County when Penn State President Eric Walker named him to be the first campus director. One of his first tasks was to find a temporary site so classes could begin in September of 1967. The building Penn State selected was the former Great Leopard department store at 6th and Penn Streets in Chester. In the back, there was a food market specializing in, according to legend, fish. The windowless building was only about 60 feet away from the railroad track serving the Northeast Corridor. The Big C roller rink on the top floor operated every afternoon, while classes just below were still in session. Those of us who had late afternoon classes contended with the skaters overhead and the roaring trains adjacent to our classrooms. Jim Morgan was 13 years old when his carpenter father was hired to lay out the design for classrooms inside the gutted retail space. Jim remembers working with his father one day in June of 1967. That day, he met the building's owner, Bill Coopersmith, and a new gentleman in town named John Viro.
They went to my father and they asked him if he had any ideas how they might sketch the floor out. So my dad picked up a piece of cardboard and he literally took a pencil and sketched it out. John said that he took that piece of cardboard and gave it to the architects, and they didn't change anything. So they made it work.
Brown paneling defined the hallways, the classrooms, the restrooms, the bookstore, and the offices. A community advisory board was established, 11 full-time faculty members were hired, and classes for 236 students started on September 25th. Most students would spend 2 years at the campus and complete their Penn State degrees elsewhere. About 10% of the student body was enrolled in associate degree programs. There weren't many places for students to gather. Tables accommodated lunch, chess, and pinochle. Machines dispensed snacks. Even the impromptu entertainment shared space with vehicles in the parking lot. Ernie Repasy was a member of the pioneer class.
One of the things that I remember pretty vividly is that when we had English class in the afternoon with Mrs. Buckmaster, we knew that around 3:15 that the train will be coming through Chester. And of course, she had to stop teaching because it was so loud. As a matter of fact, sometimes it felt like the train was coming right through the classroom.
In 1967, John D. Viro called the initial meeting of the faculty. All of us were able to sit around one table. We were such a small group. John Viro cheered us on and spoke of our great mission, and he said with great earnestness, "I want you each to begin planning for the year 2000. There was a great silence in the room at that point, and the colleague next to me said in a whisper, "This man is crazy. I don't have a doorknob on the door of my room." We were just beginning, so there would be years ahead. And why not plan on being around until the year 2000? At least I'd have a job if I did well.
Years later, at a ceremony naming the library for him, John Viro recalled how difficult it was to attract faculty to teach at the Chester campus, and how proud he was of the people he hired.
Our name has been spread all over the world by the faculty still residing here, the faculty working here, the faculty doing the research here, the faculty writing their books here, the faculty writing their magazine articles, their professional articles. Can you imagine a little campus having the output that this campus has? I don't think that it's replicated anywhere within the university. It took a rare breed of man and women to say yes to me that they would come to work for the Delaware County campus in that fish market in the city of Chester. And that is no joke. I remember when we would conduct classes there, when the Pennsylvania Railroad used to go right through that old building, right through my office. I know it, and just everything just rattled. And I also remember that big parking lot that we had alongside of us, and remember that parking lot was the rallying point for all the malcontents in the world, I guess. And every day we used to wonder, are we going to be here tomorrow?
The coda to the Chester heritage is that a few years after the campus had moved, our temporary and humble first home was destroyed by fire. Brown paneling, roller rink, and all.
Delaware County is adjacent to Philadelphia and has a population of its own of more than 500,000 people. The campus location provides unprecedented opportunity for a lot of high school students and adults to start, resume, or complete their Penn State education near their homes.
What I've really loved about this campus and what has really stayed with me no matter what academic year it is are the students. The students are coming from situations where this is a real chance for them. This is an opportunity for them to grow, to become who they're going to become as young adults.
K. David Boyer, a 1969 graduate of Chester High School, had not been encouraged by advisors there to pursue a school such as Penn State. But he did, and he became something of John Viro's poster child for successfully taking advantage of the opportunity.
From my military experience, I was familiar with technology, I was familiar with communications, and that is what I transferred over into a professional career as an entrepreneur, as a successful businessman. The successes that I've been able to accomplish can be directly linked to my experience here at Delaware County campus, and specifically under the mentoring of Dr. Viro. It was a matter of being at the right place, at the right time, surrounded by the right people, and being afforded an opportunity to make a difference, not only for myself, but for my country.
Gideon Tekla Georges had been in the United States for less than 5 years when he was admitted to Penn State in the summer of 1993. He was still learning English in the American culture, so he was both excited and nervous about starting university life.
The whole environment in Penn State was so welcoming. It was immediately, we felt like we were home. Overall, the best way I can explain the school, if I can find a best analogy, it became that beautiful quilt that kept you warm and at ease. Now it's not just a learning environment, but when a place becomes a place that you're spending more time on than at home, that was a beautiful memory.
Another unmistakable signature of the Brandywine campus is the diversity of the student body, a source of pride on campus since opening day. Early organizations such as the Keystone Society and the Big Brothers Big Sisters Association attracted a mix of students that reflected the campus population. And while that was happening, John Viro, with the help of student leaders, developed several initiatives designed to encourage the enrollment and retention of underserved populations. Zadi Abdul Malik, then known as James Garner, and Natalie Burrell were two of the students deeply involved in those efforts.
We started what was called the Black Student League. We saw the need to combine our efforts as Black students to help and assist others in getting to Penn State. Mr. John Viro, again, a very good man that I had a very good relationship with. He understood our plight, and there was never anything negative from him in regards to what we were trying to do to increase and better ourselves as African Americans. One of the things we did was sat down and developed what was called the Campus Accomplishment Corps, which ultimately became the EOP program in the university system.
It was an extremely warm experience. John Viro, one of a kind. I wish they had made a mold for him. And then, of course, Zwadi, who was like the ambassador of the campus, who initially just swooped everybody up.
Starting in the 1970s, other students and faculty continued the tradition of developing programs to celebrate multiculturalism.
In 1992, the 25th anniversary of this campus, we had a small budget to do a program, and that was the first cultures program that we did on the campus. We did the Cultures of Africa. And the goal for this program was to expand interest in multiculturalism in all different fields of Africa. And the idea was to take all the different events that regularly happened on the campus and put them into a context where they could see it through the eyes of African culture. We followed that 2 years later with a cultural program on Asia. 2 years from that, we did a program on Latino Hispanic culture. And it was in the 90s that we began doing our international programs as well.
These global programs began right around the time I started teaching here, starting out with destinations mostly in French and Spanish-speaking countries. We've expanded to include Japan. We tried a China program. We've been to South America, and we ran our second Cuba program this year.
The highly productive faculty has been the academic backbone of the campus. The faculty have been recognized with national and international awards for teaching and scholarship.
I had just published a book on Mary Moody Emerson, the aunt of Ralph Waldo, and was called at 6:30 in the morning by our chancellor, Ed Temesco, who said excitedly, "Phyllis, we're on the front page of the Philadelphia Inquirer." We were both, of course, really pleased at the publicity for our campus. And that's really part of a bigger picture that our campus, our faculty have gotten quite a lot of publicity in the local, national, even international news.
In 2017, nearly 150 student athletes competed in 13 varsity sports. All students enjoyed a beautiful gymnasium and fitness center. What a difference 50 years made. The classic observation is that necessity is the mother of invention. Nowhere were invention and innovation more evident than early in campus athletics and physical education, where faculty had to teach gym without a gym. They utilized everything from rented facilities to chalkboards in a locker room to nearby Ridley Creek State Park.
We had no facilities. for physical education, for coaching, or for athletics. So we ended up renting almost everything.
There was no gymnasium on campus, and we practiced down at the Media Boys Club, which was a very, very little gym with old crank-up baskets where I had to turn the heat on and sweep the floor every day, and we played our games at Northley Junior High School.
For 7 years, I had to teach without any indoor facility, and you had to be very creative.
And we did some crazy things here on campus. We repelled from the main building with our camping and survival class.
We really had to be people who could think of original ways to do things, whether it be teaching class or teaching athletics.
Outside of sports, the campus was in the vanguard of exploring new technologies and alliances. Dr. Jane Cooper was instrumental in crafting a 5-year pre-medicine program with Thomas Jefferson University. Math Options for Girls was an early precursor to the STEM programs that were to follow. There were several early experiments in long-distance learning. Brian Logue was among the students in 1995 to take part in Project Vision, one of the campus's innovative technology programs.
We were 3 years before Google was even founded. The internet was in its infancy. Nobody knew what Skype was, and we were really doing it online. Now today I just read that 5.8 million students in 2014 take classes online. I'd like to think we kind of laid the groundwork for that.
The campus commencement program had an unglamorous beginning in the oil-stained parking lot of the main building, but even commencement can boast an innovative twist.
One of the things that I think makes our commencement program unique is in 1992, we introduced the open mic, where students were given the opportunity to make a few comments about their experience at the campus. A commencement speaker that we had here that had been to many other commencements made the comment to a local reporter that he'd been to many commencements, but he thought this one was probably the warmest and most family-friendly commencement he's ever been to.
Another signature achievement of the campus is its long and proud parade of alumni successful in business, industry, science, medicine, and public service.
I still remember fondly Professor Jane Cooper, who was an outstanding biology professor as I majored in pre-medicine. I also remember how much help I got from Carolyn Boswell, and she was like a mother away from home. When I think of Penn State University, I think of family, commitment to excellence, and most importantly, a strong foundation for any career that you choose, and in my case, a career in cardiology.
I had the pleasure of being here in 75 to 77, back when we had one building. About 200 yards up the path was an old, I think, Pico trailer that had vending machines in it and a couple of tables. That was it. No, we would go across the street to the basement of the church where I had a philosophy class with Dr. Ginsburg. But it was an awesome place. And for a guy like me, I grew up in Glen Olden. My folks didn't have a whole lot of money. It was a great option for me to start college that way and then finish at University Park. I have the privilege now of serving in the Pennsylvania State Senate in the 9th Senatorial District, the seat formerly held by Senator Clarence Bell, who spent over 45 years in the State Senate. And he was a huge supporter, and a lot of what's going on this campus all started with the legacy of Clarence D. Bell, who was just an extraordinary man.
So my Penn State education has prepared me for today's working world. Shortly after graduation, I started working at Ernst & Young as a consultant, working there for about 4 years, and then shortly after that, I ended up at Aramark, and then I made my way to FMC Corporation, and now I work for ADP. Penn State Brandywine and our professors and the Penn State education that I received was invaluable for me to network, to stay relevant, and of course, to be competitive in today's world.
The fact that I could stay home, work, and still continue my studies at a great institution like Penn State University. Been able to parlay that into a family business, to grow a family business 10 times the size it was when I started.
For 20 years, Edward F. Linder, Jr., Dean of Student Affairs, counseled students with a mix of understanding, discipline, compassion, and good humor. On 2 different occasions, enterprising students protesting the lack of space in a one-building campus, supplied their own expansions. One group constructed an elaborate treehouse some 60 feet up, accessible only by ropes. Another group built the notorious bubble deep in the woods. This one had its own generator and was heated. Years later, Dean Linder enjoyed recounting the discovery and demolition of the bubble, and, yes, the modest discipline of the imaginative builders.
The town and gown relationship between Penn State Brandywine and its surrounding community always has been the proverbial two-way street.
Right away, I saw the amazing spirit of our students and staff and faculty all coming together to volunteer with Phil Abundance, serving meals at the Ronald McDonald House, even participating in the Susan G. Komen 5K race in Philadelphia. What I think is really unique is also how we've gone above and beyond and even instituted some of our own original projects. For example, Nittany Lion Needleworks. For over 10 years, we were able to bring together knitters, crocheters, and quilters, and even community members and alumni to create handmade items that we donated to Save Our Children, to animal shelters, to Project Linus. Over a 10-year period, we donated almost 9,000 items to the community.
And alumni and friends give back to the campus in many ways.
In 1985, we raised $500 and present one student with one scholarship in that amount. 30 years later, the campus was able to award more than $350,000 in scholarships to over 170 students. Those numbers continue to grow. Thank you to all alumni and friends who continue to contribute to the scholarship fund to help our students make a better future for themselves.
These have been our signatures for 50 years, the opportunity the campus has afforded to so many, the diversity of the student body, which continues to give it strength.
We have noted some achievements of our faculty, the inventiveness of academic, technical, and athletic programs, and we heard from just a few of the leaders who have emerged with our Penn State degrees.
There's one last campus hallmark we haven't mentioned yet. At a sometimes emotional ceremony marking the end of his 40 years at Penn State Brandywine, Dr. George Franz was able to hold it together long enough to identify one more unique signature.
Magic happens at this campus. Perhaps not every day and not in every class, but magic happens. We've been doing it for 40 years, and I hope we keep doing it for at least 40 more. Be magicians. Keep making magic. Keep transforming lives. Thank you for coming today and sharing in my joy at being a Penn Stater. We are